What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty Peak here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. It's been a couple of days. Sorry, we've been super busy outside of the Steelers world, but really excited today to be talking to you about Dajun Edwards. And is he the second coming of Jaylen Warren? Is he Jaylen Warren 2.0? This undrafted rookie running back out of Georgia. Had a pretty decent college career. We're going to talk about that. We're going to look at, is he different to Jaylen Warren? Is he the same as Jaylen Warren? And all those good things and more in this episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. All right, let's get straight into it. So the Steelers right now have a number of different running backs on their roster. They've got 7. They've got Cordell Patterson, running back, kick returner. They have Jaylen Warren, obviously, who we're talking about a little bit today. They've got Jonathan Ward, Aaron Champlin, Michael Pirine, Najee Harris, Dajun Edwards. Dajun Edwards, Jaylen Warren. That's who we're talking about. But there's usually only 4 running backs on the Steelers roster in terms of the 53 guys that make it. Then they carry 1 to 2 on the practice squad. Now, Pirine and Champlin, you're probably going to say they're already going to be like or Champlin are already going to be out of the mix, right? If Edwards is to make it. Jonathan Ward, same thing, but he's floated around the practice squad previously. So right now you're looking at Najee Harris, Cordell Patterson, Jaylen Warren as 3 of your blokes. Maybe if they choose to, they can also choose not to go with the 4th and because of Connor Haywood and the role that he plays on this team. But I'm really hopeful that Edwards can give it a crack and be a guy that can make this roster. But let's have a look at how he compares to Jaylen Warren, because some pretty interesting things when you go into these players and you look at across their characteristics. I thought we'd start with, before we look at their production, and we're going to watch a couple little highlights of Edwards as well. But before we look at their production, I thought we'd just look at like general state of play in terms of their metrics, their measurables, all those good things. So Jaylen Warren was a 3-year player, went to 2 different colleges, but Oklahoma State was where he came out of in the draft class. He was 204 pounds at the combine. I think he's up to about 2'7", 210 now with the Steelers. But he had a height of 5'8". He had an arm size of 29 7/8 inches. He had a hand size of 9 1/4 inch. He had a prospect grade of 5.94, which makes him an average backup or special teamer. Now, obviously, he's done better than that, right? That was the prospect grade coming out. He's proven he's a lot better than that. They got it wrong. And actually, it's quite funny. When I went through the and he was also rated as, according to Lance Zierlein, as a round 6 to priority UDFA. He did go UDFA. But when you look at all the strengths, we know that he's compact, burly, ready to collide, confident and competitive. There's no dancing with the football. He just goes hard. Guides blockers into linebackers, they, really, really well. And we see that. Makes cuts without losing speed. I'm not going to go through everything here. But then weaknesses, I thought this was really funny for Steelers fans out there. I thought you'd find this funny. Unreliable option in 3rd down pass protection. I think Jaylen Warren's proved he's a pretty good blocker to the point that even Baldy's calling him out on social media and in NFL programs. So in his rookie year. So it's kind of funny. Linear attack forcing the cut prematurely. I don't think we've seen any of that too. And the 1-speed running style lacks unpredictability. I just think this guy goes hard all day. I don't see that as a weakness, and I think that's been really good for the Steelers. But I thought that was kind of funny when I saw this in Jaylen Warren's profile. But moving back to the topic of the show and comparing him to Dajun Edwards and looking at the potential of Dajun Edwards. Dajun Edwards is out of Georgia, 1 inch taller, 3 pounds heavier at the combine. Arm size is basically the same. Hand size is basically the same. They're both 29. Dajun Edwards 9 3/4. Jaylen Warren 29 7/8. Dajun Edwards 29 3/4. Dajun Edwards 9.5 hand size. Jaylen Warren 9 1/4. These guys do have to hold the football. Hand size, it was funny. We talk about the quarterbacks. We don't really talk about them with running backs, but there you go. There's a fun stat for you. Jaylen Warren, a 5.94 average backup or special teamer. 5.8 for Dajun Edwards, average backup or special teamer. If you go the Next Gen Stats athletic score, which I think underrated Jaylen Warren in his draft class in 2023, he got a 61. Dajun Edwards got a 57. Interesting. Now, if you look at Dajun Edwards, we'll have a look at some of their stats and college production as well. But he was considered a round 7 to priority free agents. Remember, with Jaylen Warren, it was a round 6 to priority free agent. So similar sort of thing there. Strengths: ability to stack cuts back to back in either direction, impressive lateral footwork to slide around traffic and reset his run lane, moves in line with feet close to ground for added contact balance, runs with good forward lean and is hard to bring down. This sounds like Jaylen Warren a little bit. Gives decent effort in pass pro and is an average pass catching option. Again, sounds like Jaylen Warren a little bit, but we've seen Jaylen Warren do some cool things in the passing game. Weaknesses: unorthodox running style, lacks cohesiveness. Again, that sounds a little bit like criticism of Jaylen Warren with a couple of the notes there. Doesn't show much read and burst quickness hitting it downhill. Has the tendency to try and extend runs that need to be finished with pop. Not a natural puzzle solver as an interior runner looking for a finish line. I mean, this is getting picky to me. It starts to get pretty picky. So that's just like the overall, when you look at these guys, the physicals, the measurables, that sort of thing. What about production? Because that can also be a really important thing, and we will get to some highlights. But I want to bring up some production. So Jaylen Warren obviously played at Utah State, Oklahoma State, as you can see on the screen in front of you. 407 attempts rushing overall in his career for 2,037 yards, an average of 5, 19 TDs, 45 receptions for 440 yards. That's an average of 9.8. I don't expect you to remember all these numbers, but you're going to hear some very similar numbers in a moment. 9.8. So overall, he had 452 plays from the line of scrimmage and for 2,477 yards and 19 TDs. 3 years, though, mind you. Dajun Edwards did play 4 years. Let's have a look at Dajun Edwards. Dajun Edwards, 4 years. So he had 390 attempts, right, versus Jaylen Warren's 407. He ran for 2,083 yards in those 390 attempts versus Jaylen Warren's 2,037 yards. He averaged 5.3. Jaylen Warren averaged 5.0. Jaylen Warren had 19 TDs, as we said just before. Dajun Edwards had 24 TDs. He had 37 receptions for 343 yards at an average of 9.3. Remember, Jaylen Warren had 45 receptions for 440 yards of an average of 9.8. So Dajun Edwards averages 0.3 more in rushing, but averages 0.5 less in receiving. Overall, 427 plays from the line of scrimmage versus Jaylen Warren's 452. Jaylen Warren had 2,477 yards, as I said earlier. Dajun Edwards, 2,426. Literally 50 yards difference, less than 50 yards difference, 49 yards difference. Oh, no, 51. I lie, 51. 5.7 average from the line of scrimmage for Dajun Edwards, 5.5 for Jaylen Warren, but Dajun Edwards had 24 TDs. So when you look at this, the guys are pretty much the same height, pretty much the same weight, have pretty much the same arm length, have pretty much the same hand size, pretty much the same college production in the running and the passing game. You might say that Dajun Edwards, obviously played behind probably a better line than Jaylen Warren. He played in a much more competitive division than Jaylen Warren. He was, brought in to play at a much better college than the colleges that overall, in terms of the quality of the players that Jaylen Warren played at. They both have gone undrafted. It does kind of feel like Jaylen Warren 2.0. Imagine if this still is. Obviously we don't know. We've not seen this guy hit the field. But this guy could really show something in the preseason. So I've given you, as I say, the physical traits, the measurables, the stats. Why don't we watch a little bit of play? So I'm going to bring up a quick video here. I'm not going to watch all of it, but I want you to watch some of this run style. It's going to be interesting. All right, let's bring it up. Look at that quick feet, right? Trying to stay up and balance. Look at this. Run to the line. Boom, hit that hole between the guard and the tackle. Very Jaylen Warren-like. When you see this, just barreling through. And what's the one thing that I noticed with all these highlights too, is that when you look at it, Jaylen Warren does this. He tries to make the first man miss all the time. This guy, Dajun Edwards, they don't just wear the same jersey number in 30. Dajun Edwards missing these guys. Like Jaylen Warren, running to that outside edge. Now you can say all running backs should be doing this. It's kind of, it was black and gold instead of red and black and white. Feels like Jaylen Warren, doesn't it? Look at this. Hit that line, the quick feet, the movement, the cannonball player. Obviously, a little bit smaller than these guys are smaller than Harris. Different kind of back in the hole, running the outside, then leaving inside. It's I don't know. I just to me, it's just crazy because you just kind of feel that like the Steelers managed to get a Jaylen Warren 2.0. And so for Dajun Edwards, it's really exciting for him to be a teammate of Jaylen Warren, right? Now we've talked a lot about Najee Harris not getting the fifth year option. Jaylen Warren's in his final year of his deal as well. The ability to bring in an Edwards at a position where the NFL turns these guys over pretty frequently. Remember what Omar Khan said? It's just business. Now, do I expect them to re-sign Najee Harris? I do. They followed what I suggested before the tag, but before the fifth year option was required. I said, don't do that. He's not worth that much per year, right? You can sign him on 2 or 3 years deal instead of taking the fifth year option and probably to get him at 5.5 per, and so I think it was 6.3 was meant to get paid off the top of my head, right? But Jaylen Warren, if Najee doesn't stay, Jaylen Warren, you can probably pay even less than that because of the pedigree. You can give him probably 4 plus incentives. But Dajun Edwards here, like Corridor Patterson, this might be a 1-year wonder with him. And he's more going to be a kick returner, less a running back. I think Dajun Edwards has got a real shot to make this roster if he can have a good preseason. And the cool part is he's got a guy that trailblazed the path forward with the same sort of stats, the same sort of measurables in Jaylen Warren. And I'm here for it because if we can find a Jaylen Warren 2.0 to sit behind Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, behind this offensive line that the Steelers have built, this road grader offensive line, man, I like what the Steelers are cooking up. But let me know in the comments, do you think Edwards has any shot at making the roster? And if you do you think he can contribute in a way in preseason to alleviate the amount of snaps that Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris has to take? Can you get your thoughts in the comments on Dajun Edwards? I'm excited by this kid. I really am. As always, go Steelers.